Isn't it so good to know that Jesus is very committed to his church? He is so committed to us that he promised that his presence would never leave us. Today I want to talk about something very dear to my heart. It's entitled Being Aware, or Cultivating an Awareness of the Presence of the Holy Spirit. So in Matthew 28 verse 20, when Jesus was commanding his disciples to go to all the nations and make disciples, he gave this promise. He says, "And surely I am with you always, even to the end of the ages." We know that Jesus left, and he promised that the Holy Spirit will come, the Spirit of truth, the Comforter, the one that was proceeding from the Father, would come and be with his disciples. And as he said, Acts chapter 2 tells us, when the day of Pentecost had fully come, the Holy Spirit descended upon them. In John 14, however, Jesus explained that when he comes, this is one of the things that will be clear. He says, "The Spirit of truth, the world cannot accept him because it neither sees him nor knows him. But you know him, for he lives with you and he will be in you." So the Holy Spirit, who Jesus promised would be with the disciples, has come to live in us, but is also with us. My question though is, are you aware of his presence? And many of us listening would be believers, and we know he's in us, but are you also aware that he's with you? How aware are you of his presence? I also believe that the Spirit of God, his manifest presence, can increase. And there are some things that if we do intentionally to create that awareness of our own, for ourselves, of his presence, it helps us to know how to see his manifest presence increase. And Jesus continues to say, "I will not leave you as orphans. I will come to you before long. The world will not see me anymore, but you will see me. Because I live, you also will live." And he was talking to his disciples at the time, and he said, "On that day, you will realize that I am in the Father, and you are in me, and I am in you. Whoever has my commandments and obeys them, he is the one who loves me. And he who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I too will love him and show myself to him." This is my understanding, that the Spirit of truth, the Holy Spirit, who is committed to the believer, the Bible says the world cannot receive him. So we believers who have received him, he's in us, he's with us. Jesus also says our love for him is shown in our obedience. Whatever he tells us to do, our prompt obedience shows our love for him. So as we express our obedience to him, whatever he tells us to do is an expression of our love. And then he says his manifest presence would increase. That's my reading of it. His manifest presence would increase as we deliberately walk this walk of love. So where are you on your journey of love? You know, the Old Testament is got examples of saints, men and women, who were passionately in love with God. And with their limited understanding at the time, they desired his presence. Some encountered it without recognizing it. For example, Jacob, when he was running away from his brother on his way. You remember the story. At Bethel, he made a stone his pillow, and the Bible says the heavens were opened before him. There was an open heaven, and there was a stairway to heaven, and angels were ascending and descending. And he said, "Wow, I did not know this. For this place is actually the very house of God." And I think of somebody like Joseph, a man who possibly was aware of the presence of God. But the scriptures are very, very particular. It says, when Joseph was in Potiphar's house, the Lord was with him. And because of the manifest presence, it was quite clear Joseph stood out, to the point that we know Potiphar's wife even found him so attractive, she tempted him. And then he was thrown in prison. And still, the Bible specifically says, and the Lord was with him. Are you aware the Lord is with you? He's with you at work. He's with you at home. He's with you on a walk. He's with you wherever you find yourself. And he wants us to be intentional. Colossians chapter 3 reminds us of one of the ways that we can focus our attention on his presence. It tells us to focus our mind, our heart, and our mind on things above. So when our hearts and our minds are on things above, it helps us to be consciously aware of his presence. And when you're conscious of his presence, you're mindful of what you say, you're mindful of how you act towards people, because you're conscious that the Holy One is with you. And his presence is there to bless others. He says, since then you have been raised with Christ, set your hearts on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on earthly things. For you died and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. So that's my encouragement to you. Keep your heart and your mind on Christ. I know it's not always easy, but let's be more intentional. I would say prayer is a key way that we consciously create an awareness of his presence. Worship. When we adore him, and I want to tell you, worship him. Address him in worship. I adore you. You are worthy. Worthy is the Lamb. I glorify you. I say you are worthy. You are beautiful. I magnify you. When we deliberately express our worship to him in singing, it's beautiful. And in the sense of his presence, our awareness of his presence increases. I also say that as we just practice our walk with him and fellowship in the light as believers, as we devote ourselves to love each other and fellowship in his presence becomes real to us. As we do good, share the gospel, pray for the sick, and see the glory of Christ shine in our lives, in our families, in our places of work. Be a light where you are, for you are the light of the world. His presence is with you. God bless you.